the Michigan offense, talk a little bit more about them against the Nebraska defense. And, as much as, they kind of played the way they did against Oklahoma, by all accounts, they showed some remorse for that, which you have to give them credit for, and feel like they're going to play to their strength, which one of them is Bryce Underwood at this point, and let him run, let him throw down the field a little bit more. You're going against a Nebraska defense that ranks number 1 in the country right now in pass defense. Of course, so early to actually go by yards per game totals, but they have not allowed over 100 yards passing 3 consecutive games, first time since 1990 that they've done that. Opponents are completing just 50% of their passes against them, 3 yards per attempt, no pass play over 19 yards against this Nebraska defense. The weakness of the defense is up front. They got run on quite a bit by Cincinnati. They averaged 6.7 yards per carry. Brendan Sorsby, the quarterback, ran for over 7 yards a carry, a couple touchdowns. There were a lot of lanes there. It doesn't look like a super fast front seven. So I think Justice Haynes will have some opportunities there. But your guys' thoughts on this Michigan offense going in against a defense? And could the number 1 defense thing be a motivator? Because last time Michigan came into Nebraska, they were the number 1 rush defense. And all you heard from the players when we talked to them after Michigan destroyed them 45-7 was, oh, yeah, they had the number 1 run D. Like, we wanted to go in and prove we were better, and they did.
They haven't played anybody to know how good they really are. Let's be fair and honest here. They should have lost to Cincinnati, if we're being blunt, right? That's thought number 1. And you can kind of say the same thing about Michigan, having put up big numbers against 2 teams that they overmatched and then just absolutely got eviscerated by Oklahoma in an embarrassing loss there. So this is the litmus test game for both teams. And it's going to come down to the Michigan offensive line, right? I do believe that Justice Haynes is going to have a big game again. He will be the workhorse. He's been the back for Michigan. Jordan Marshall started showing signs of life against Central Michigan and kind of the back that we thought he would be. He still has another gear, guys. There's no question about it. Everybody's saying the same thing. Maybe he's pressing a little bit. And sometimes it's natural, right? As much as these 2 guys really like and respect each other, when you've got a guy like that that's playing in front of you, the pressure's on, right, to perform if you want to get your snaps because Haynes is just that good. So to me, it's going to come down to pass protection. It's going to come down to the game plan. It's going to come down to the Michigan receivers getting separation at the line. Oklahoma had 0 respect for the Michigan receiving corps, and they played like that, and it really played to their advantage. Now, it did create some opportunities that Bryce Underwood missed. We can't put it all on one group. We can't put it all on the offensive line. We can't put it all on the receivers. We can't put it all on Underwood. They all had their issues. Even Max Bredesen, guys, did not play a good game against Oklahoma. So, but to me, they are going to take their chances with the Michigan receivers, try to take Bryce Underwood out of the game and make him think a little bit too much and rattle him the way that Oklahoma did. They don't have the same defense, the front 7 that Oklahoma did, but that atmosphere, it's tougher, right, guys, when you're going silent count. So it's going to make it tougher for them. It's going to make it hard. So it's going to, a lot of it, I think, is going to come down to the running game. And we'll see. I do expect Jake Guarnera to start again at right guard. He had a really nice game against Central Michigan. And again, it's just Central Michigan, but he and Nathan Afobe at guards really make me a little bit nervous there. And honestly, Evan Link still makes me a little bit nervous at left guard and Greg Crippen at center. So this is a big moment for these guys to prove that, hey, we can do this in a tough environment against a defense that they really should be able to handle.
Yeah, for as much talk as there was last week about, they'll open up the offense and Bryce Underwood's chucking the ball down the field and they've got they're being super aggressive. I almost feel like this is a game where you do win via the run game, but it's with Underwood involved in helping out that offensive line. Something that we talked about a few times this week with Michigan players, Michigan coaches, is that, once you put that quarterback run threat on film, it does change the math of what you see in the box. And for the offensive line, it's a numbers game. Like, there are less people to block if you have a guy that is sort of staying back and spying the quarterback. So I think that building off of that is critical this week. Certainly, I think that Nebraska's defensive line, I think there are some question marks there. So whatever group that plays better between a Michigan offensive line that has a lot of questions and a Nebraska defensive line that has a lot of questions is probably going to be the team that wins this football game. So I don't want to boil it down to that, it being that simple, but you also, I talk about how the run game is important. You got to trust Bryce Underwood to make a play down the field as well at some point. And I think a big key in this game in general is going to be which team does cut its quarterback loose, give them a chance to make plays down the field. And we'll talk about how that applies to Nebraska and Dylan Raiola here in a bit, but use that skill set. And if you go down making a mistake, you just can't be risk averse. I think at this point, last week was sort of proof of concept of what can happen when you let your dual threat freshman quarterback do what he was brought here to do. But I think it's going to have to be a mixture of that with vintage meat and potatoes, win the line of scrimmage, run the football well, sustain drives as well.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what kind of opportunities are there down the field. I don't think that this Nebraska defense is very good at rushing the passer. And so I don't think, Underwood's going to be under duress as much as he was against Oklahoma. When you look at Nebraska's defense, they're 81st in the country right now in pressure rate, 32.1%. That's 17th in the Big Ten. Only UCLA is worse. Now, they've only blitzed 21 times through 3 games. I would imagine that number goes up and they play a little more aggressive and try to get pressure, do whatever they can to get pressure. And like you said, Chris, maybe they don't respect the Michigan receivers as much, so you bring more guys. But that could open some opportunities up down the field. Or if that pass rush doesn't get home and nobody's open, Underwood now feels more comfortable just tucking it and running. And those could be some huge plays in this game now that they've kind of cut him loose a little bit more. But I think having gone through the experience they did against Oklahoma, Bryce Underwood's been there in a big-time environment against a red team. It's weird. They're playing red teams like every week. But, he has seen that. He knows what it feels like. He knows what it's like to have the silent count. The offensive line, they've communicated together before, some different guys in there. But, especially if Guarnera does start and Brady Norton could be back, or maybe he moves over to the left side if he's back. Grant Newsome kind of hinted at that yesterday. So be interesting to see how Michigan's O-line and quarterback handle it. But I think they'll be more adept at handling it because, 1, the front seven's not as good as Oklahoma's, and 2, they've gone through that experience before. Yeah. So should we flip it over to the Nebraska offense against this Michigan defense?
I do have one more point I want to share, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Michigan has 2 things on offense going into this game that it didn't have for that Oklahoma game. The one is, like we already talked about, the run threat that Bryce Underwood brings to the table. They look willing to do that too. Also, Marlon Klein. We talk about helping the offensive line. We talk about being that safety valve over the middle of the field. And I think the middle of the field is going to be huge on both sides of the ball for Michigan. But those are 2 things that 2 weapons they did not have a couple weeks ago. And I think that's going to make a difference.
Klein Hansen, baby. Klein Hansen. I like that combination at tight end.
Absolutely. A great point, Anthony. I'm glad you brought that up. And Hogan Hansen, too, played 13 snaps, I think it was, against Oklahoma. He didn't look quite comfortable. He said once you get out there and you take your first hit, you're back to normal. And he said he was pretty healthy for that game. But he looked much more comfortable. I mean, of course, it was CMU, but he looked like he was healthier and everything and played more last week against CMU. So good to have that combination as to help Bryce Underwood out. I mean, you were on your 3rd, 4th tight end in the Oklahoma game. So great point there.